All right, the article I'll be doing is what does the Federal Open Market Committee shift in the Fed funds rate target language mean? Written by Alexander L. Woolman, published July 2021 through the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. Going to start with the interpretation. First part of this article is about interpretation. The Federal Open Market Committee's August revision statement went over the monetary policy strategy along with longer run goals. This means the Federal Open Market Committee had also made revisions for its inflation strategy. This change consisted of maintaining a 2% target while allowing an average to take place instead of only 2% being the acceptable inflation rate. Following this, the Federal Open Market Committee's September statement concluded that they will commit to keeping interest rates low until the maximum employment is nearly met. Moving on to the historical context. Since the early 1990s, the inflation rate in the US remained stable and consistently low. The PCE inflation rate ranged from 0.7% to 3.2%, with an average of 1.9. The PCE rate, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, is an alternative measure of inflation in the price index for personal consumption expenditures. For the previous 28 years, the PCE range was 1.3% to 9.8%, with an average of 4.9. This is drastically different. And with these averages in mind, since 1993, there has been 4 tightening cycles, all of which did not meet the goal of maximum employment by any means. And then I included this graph because it is shown in the article, and I wanted to add it here to show where the rates of natural employment, unemployment, and the effective Fed funds rate all were at in the first quarter of the years ranging from 1993 to 2020. And then we move to the rationale for Federal Open Market Committee strategy. For the September Federal Open Market Committee strategy, it very much differs from the previous 30 years of policy for interest rates. The consensus statement and macroeconomic models showed that monetary policy does not have the ability to achieve long-run inflation goals, but is still limited in its ability to control the unemployment rate. Essentially, what the FOMC's September statement concluded was that the constrained policy approach holds rates lower until maximum employment is achieved. And then what about risks of the new strategy? So where the problems or concerns arise with this strategy is with high inflation rates being able to be anchored overall. With this, the shift in the Fed's approach meant that instead of the Fed raising rates as unemployment fell and lowering them when employment goals were met, the Fed now plans to keep rates at the lower bound until the goals are reached. And the committee is able to adjust if it is deemed necessary. However, adjustments does not include forsaking the new consensus statement, but instead adjusting the prevailing economic conditions. And in conclusion, what the author's message to the reader is, the author conveys a new perspective on the FOMC recent shift in monetary policy. They emphasize the significant departure from their historical approach, in addition, still acknowledging concerns from commentators about the potential risks of inflation becoming unanchored. Another piece that the author highlights is the committee's readiness to adjust if risks emerge that can negatively affect their goals. Overall, the author suggests that the FOMC's recent policy change is not a rigid commitment, but rather a response to evolving circumstances, and they aim to achieve the committee's goal in as effective manner as possible. Thank you very much.